Welcome, my name's Jeff Bartels. I'm an infrastructure technical specialist at Autodesk, and today we're going to be talking about ways to set up data shortcuts in the Civil 3D platform. Just a little bit about myself. I have been working in the civil infrastructure industry for more than 20 years. I've been teaching Autodesk applications for a long time. Just had my 7-year anniversary here at Autodesk, and I contribute to a blog called Civil Immersion. I put the URL there on screen. This is a project that myself and a couple other technical specialists put together for the sole purpose of creating how-to videos to help customers make the most of their AEC collection investment. In the past couple of years, we have created hundreds of 6 to 8 minute recordings showing how you could do valuable workflows within Civil 3D, Map 3D, AutoCAD, InfraWorks, vehicle tracking, Formats, raster design, Navisworks. There's even some BIM 360 stuff in there. Could be a great reference if you're interested. By all means, you can use that URL to stop by and take a look. Our agenda today, we're going to be talking about the concept of data shortcuts. We'll be looking at what they are, why we need them, who creates them, how we create them, and where they're stored. Pretty much the who, what, where, when, and why when it comes to data shortcuts. If you've ever attended one of my sessions before, you know I'm not a huge fan of PowerPoint. This is going to be a PowerPoint-free zone. We're going to be working live in the application for the duration of our time here together today. Having said that, let me drop out of my PowerPoint and we'll jump out to my desktop. Now, I probably have more icons on my desktop than I should. That's a topic for another day. For right now, let's take a look at these icons that we use to launch applications. I'm sure you'll agree that when we hover over an icon here, that this icon doesn't represent the entire application. It's basically a pointer that points to a location on my hard drive where that application's stored. And if you look in the lower left corner of this icon, you can see a symbol, an arrow, that represents that it's a shortcut. This is a shortcut that I can double click on this and it will take me to the path that it knows on my hard drive to access that application. Now, at the risk of destroying the end of the movie here, Civil 3D data shortcuts work the exact same way. That's all they are, is a pointer that points to data in a Civil 3D project. Now, I just brought up Civil 3D 2021. Let me mention that what I show you today is going to work in any version of Civil 3D. These are foundational tools, so that these things haven't changed between versions. Let me also mention that I've got a white background currently, and I have that because many times when I give presentations, it shows up better, get better contrast between the objects. That's why this may look a little bit different. I'm going to start by opening a drawing. And let's go to exercise files here. We'll open up this drawing called Dynamic Relationships. One of the nice things about Civil 3D, probably one of the best things about Civil 3D, is that the civil objects can have dependencies on other civil objects. So if there's an edit, that edit can propagate and change multiple Civil 3D objects. Now, in this drawing, I've got a surface, I've got an alignment, I've got a corridor with a top surface, I've got some profiles here. I'm going to make a quick change. I'll select this alignment and click the grip, and let's pull this down maybe to here. When I make that change, you can see how my corridor updates, the top surface updated, my profile updated. Now, it is giving me some warnings. It's saying, hey, you changed the horizontal geometry of your alignment, so you may want to check that these PVIs are all still good. We're going to assume that these are fine. Let me just select that, and I'll eliminate the notifications there. And I'm just going to make one other change. I'll grab the profile, and maybe we'll raise this PVI. So when I pull the PVI up, if you watch the corridor, you can see that updated my corridor. I've got a lot more fill here to the left and right side of the road at the beginning of my roadway. Those dynamic relationships save us a ton of time over what we used to have to do in the old days. If you made a change, you'd have to chase that change down on a whole bunch of other drawings, a whole bunch of other sheets. Here, everything is interactive and it updates automatically. Now, with this drawing, all of my Civil 3D objects are local to this file. They all live in this file. The surface is in this file, the alignment's in here, the corridor, the profiles, everything's in this drawing. In many cases, especially if you're working on a big project and you have a team of people, you don't want to have everything in one drawing because then only essentially one person can work on the project at a time. So what we like to do with larger projects is break them up into individual drawings. This way, one person can be in a drawing editing topography, another person can be in a drawing editing alignments, another person could be in a drawing editing corridors or cross sections or utilities or things like that. It's the data shortcuts, then, that maintain those dynamic relationships between disparate drawings. Just from a high level, the way this works, you have a Civil 3D project, and in that project, you create these pointers, just like we saw on the desktop, that tell the project, hey, if you want the surface lives in this drawing, in this particular directory. And if you want a centerline alignment, that alignment lives in this drawing and has the path to that particular directory where that drawing is stored. Let's take a look at that. We're going to talk about the concept of a Civil 3D project first here. Let me minimize this. On my screen, I've got a folder called H drive. I'm not connected to a network at this time, so I'm kind of simulating a drive letter here. Let me open this folder. On my H drive, we'll say I've got a collection of folders that represent years. And we'll say that in each one of these folders are the Civil 3D projects that I've worked on in each of these years. If I open up the 2020 folder, you'll see I've got a Civil 3D project called 01 Roadway. And if I expand the Civil 3D project, you can see a couple things right off the bat. Every Civil 3D project is going to include this underscore shortcuts folder. This is where all of those pointers are stored. Those pointers are little XML files, and Civil 3D takes care of all of that stuff for you, transparently. You don't have to touch any of that. So this shortcuts folder is going to be common to every Civil 3D project, as is this XML file. We don't touch these. We don't edit these. You can look at them if you want to. If I open that folder, you can see that Civil 3D does a nice job organizing the XML files for all the shortcuts that we create. So this will be here. That's part of every Civil project, but it's something that's completely managed by the application. And then the other folders in a Civil 3D project are going to be the directories where you save your drawings and your layouts and the files that people send you and Microsoft Office documentation and just the typical directories that you normally have. Knowing that, let me close this. I'm going to go back to Civil 3D and we'll create a project. To create a project, I'm going to go to Set Working Folder. Our working folder is the folder where our Civil 3D projects are stored. So if I want to create a Civil 3D project under 2020, I will set my working folder to be the 2020 folder. That's the directory that holds my Civil 3D projects. Once I set my working folder, I will come up and choose New Shortcuts Folder. Probably not the best name. Better name for that might be New Project Folder, because that's really what it's doing. If I choose this, you can see that what I'm doing is in the 2020 directory, I am creating a new folder for my Civil 3D project. We'll call this 2020-2-sample. I could give this a description if I wanted to. And if I did nothing else at this point, I could come down and click OK, and I've just created a Civil 3D project. Let's take a look. I'm going to go back out and we'll go to H drive. We'll see what we made. Under 2020, under sample, if I expand that, you can see that Civil 3D created the bare minimum. This is what it needs in order to maintain those data shortcuts. I've got the underscore shortcuts folder and this XML file. What I don't have in here is the directories where I would typically store my drawings and my layouts and documentation and things like that. Let's take this one step further. I'm going to go back to Civil 3D and we'll create another project. Now my working folder is still good, 2020. I'm going to go to New Shortcuts Folder, and I'm going to create another project here called 2020-03-Sycamore Extension, we'll call that. And once again, I could give that a description. If I wanted to create directories that are applicable to my typical Civil 3D project, I would use this project template option. And you can see there's a default template that comes out of the box. Right here, you can see where that template is stored. Now, I don't want this to be CAD magic, so let's take a look at what's in this template. I'm going to copy that to my clipboard. And here in Windows Explorer, let's paste that. You can see that in this location on my hard drive, there's this sample project. All this is an empty directory structure. If I expand this, you can see it's just a bunch of empty folders. It's someone's interpretation of a typical project, how it might be organized. So to create a template, all you would have to do is create a directory structure that matches how you typically organize projects, save it in this location or another one, because we can point to a different location to find these if we want to. But that way, every new project that you create, not only will it have that underscore shortcuts folder, but it'll also have your typical directory structure that you're used to seeing. In this example, I'm going to go with the default here, and I'll click OK. And then same as before, let's validate this. We'll see what we got. Under H drive, under 2020, under Sycamore Extension. You can see there's my shortcuts folder and XML, and then here's that directory structure created for me where I can take and save my drawings. This is basically how we create a Civil 3D project. Once the project is created, we can now use it to maintain data shortcuts. Let's close this drawing, and I'm going to open another one. Let's go to Open, and I'm going to go out to my desktop here. I've got a drawing called Sycamore Topo. Let's say this was created by a surveyor. We'll say we're the surveyor, and we generated this drawing as part of the project. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to save this in that new project that we created. I'll come up and click Save As, and then I'm going to navigate to my H drive under 2020, under Sycamore Extension. Now, this directory structure, like I said, this is the out-of-the-box one. So for right now, I'm just going to save this under Source Drawings, and I'll save it under Surfaces, since that's really what's in this file. Let's save it. This drawing is now stored in my project directory. If I was the surveyor and I captured this, I look and say, you know what, this drawing, I've created an existing ground topography here called EG. This would be helpful to other people associated with this roadway extension. Somebody may need this surface to daylight their corridor. Somebody may need this surface for earthwork calculations. So I am going to create a pointer or a shortcut so that my project is aware that if anybody wants this surface, they can find it in this drawing. So the way we create the pointer, I'm going to come over. Let's expand this out just a little bit. If you're going to save a data shortcut, if we look here on the Prospector tab, the way the Prospector tab is organized, you can see the current drawing here, and this is the data that's in this drawing. Right now there's the existing ground surface. If you look down here, this is the project that is current, and this is the data that's available in that project. Now the current project happens to be the Sycamore Extension one that we just made. So that's perfect. If I was to create a data shortcut, it'll go right in there. Let's say just for a second, this wasn't the right project. I wanted to store this shortcut in a different project. That's when we would come up and choose Set Shortcuts Folder or Set Project Folder. Working folder is still 2020. I'm going to choose Set Shortcuts Folder, and when I do, Civil 3D looks in that working folder for any Civil 3D projects that happen to live in there, and you can see that it found 3 of them. And I can see the one that's current. I could select a different one if I wanted to, and I could click OK to set that project current. So I'm going to keep this one, and I'll click OK. In the event you do not see a project here, if you just see open brackets, there's a good chance that there's a problem with your working folder. For some reason, that working folder doesn't see a Civil 3D project. What we'll do to take and create a shortcut for this, the drawing's saved in my project, I'm going to come up and choose Create Data Shortcuts. And when I do that, it shows me the data that lives in this file. I'm going to select that existing ground surface. If there was other things in here too, I could share those. So you don't have to share everything. Pay note to that. I just want to share this surface. Let me click OK. And when I do, if you watch over here, you'll see a little plus pop up. So as far as my project is concerned, it is aware that there is an existing ground surface. I've created a pointer. In fact, you can even see the little arrow, just like we saw on the desktop. This is just like that icon on the desktop that says, if you want this existing ground surface, you'll find it in this drawing at this path. Now that I have that, let me close this drawing and let me start another drawing. We'll say that I'm going to be generating the alignment for my roadway extension. And in order to draw my alignment, I'll need to see that topography. I'm going to create a reference here so I can see where to draw my alignment. Now, I want to talk here for just a second about the concept of an XREF versus a DREF. Let's X-reference that drawing that we got from the surveyor. We'll go to the H drive under 2020, Sycamore Extensions, Source Drawings. Let's go to Surface. If I XREF this drawing, I'm sure everybody's X-referenced a file before. If you externally reference a file, what do you get? You get the graphics. I can see the line work. I can see the edge of pavement that was collected, center lines. I can see anything basically that's in this file. So I have access to the graphics. I could turn things on and off. I could change layer colors or line types if I want to, but it's basically just graphics. There's no data here. Okay, now this would be nice. I could use this to draw my alignment. That's fine. Now that we've seen an XREF, let's switch it up here. I'm going to detach this. In this case, though, let's say I just want the data from that file. I just want to reference that data in. I'm going to come under my project, and I will find that EG surface. If I right-click on this, I can say Create Reference. I'm creating a DREF now. I'm referencing that data. And when I create the reference, I can choose a different style for it at this time if I want to, but let me click OK. And you can see what came in here. Just that data. Didn't get all the line work. I just pulled that shared object from that file. Since the data's here, if I hover, it'll give me the elevation. Civil 3D recognizes that data's here. I could daylight to this now. I could pull a surface profile for this. I could calculate earthwork. Another thing about data shortcuts, if I select this, I could change the style. I could make this 2-foot, 10-foot contours. I can't do that with an XREF. I could colorize this based on elevation. I can't do that with an external reference. So the choice between whether you XREF or DREF is going to be dependent on if you need the data. So I've got the data in this file. Let me create an alignment here real quick. I'm going to go to Alignment, Alignment Creation Tools, and I'll call this Sycamore Road Extension. And I'm just going to draw this quickly on screen. We'll just use this tangent with curves. Okay, and we'll just say we're making a connection there. And I don't need to see the surface, so I'm going to hide it for right now. Since I've referenced the data, I can just change the style for that. I don't need to change any layers or anything. I can just give that a no display style to hide it. So now I'm the engineer. I'm defining the center line for this new roadway extension. This would be valuable to other people in the project. Somebody might want to build a corridor from this. Somebody working on utilities may want to generate station offset labels. They would need the data from this alignment to do that. So I want to create a pointer to this drawing so people can leverage this data if they need it. Let's save this drawing in the project. I'm going to come down to my 2020-03 project, and I'm going to save this under the source drawings directory. We'll put this under the alignments folder, so you can save it anywhere you want in the project. I'm just going to call this Sycamore Centerline for right now. The drawing is saved. To create a shortcut now, or to create a pointer in my project that allows other people to access this data, we'll go to the Manage tab, Create Data Shortcuts. It will then show me the data that's in this file, just the data that lives in this file. Right now we've got that Sycamore Road alignments. Let me click OK. And now, if I look under my current project, I can see that it now has a pointer or a data shortcut that points to the Sycamore Road extension alignment in this drawing at this location. One more thing. Let's close this. I'm going to create one more file here. Let's assume I needed to create some surface profiles now. I want to generate a surface profile for that new alignment. So I'm going to be starting to define the proposed profile. So I want to do that in a completely separate file. Now that I'm in my drawing, let me save this. I'm going to save it in the project. And once again, I'm going to go into my Sycamore extension project, and I could save this anywhere. I'm just going to save it out here at the root level for right now. We'll call this Profiles. In order to create a surface profile, I'm going to need the existing ground surface, and I'll need that alignment. So I'll come over to my project. I will right-click on the surface, and I'll choose Create Reference. I'm referencing that data into this file. Not the entire drawing, just that surface data. Then I'll come down to Alignments, and I could right-click and I could create a reference here, but now, I think in 2018 this started, we have the ability, if you select that, you can click the icon and just drag and drop now. Makes it a little bit easier. You can also drag and drop more than one at a time if you want to. Let me reference the alignment, and now I want to pull a profile from this. I can do that because I've referenced the data into this drawing. I'm going to select my alignment, and I'll choose Surface Profile. That's kind of a shortcut to get there. It can see the alignment and surface. I'll click Add, Draw on Profile View, Create Profile View, and I'll place this down here. I was able to sample that even though this data lives in a different drawing. Now let's save this. Now let's test that dynamic relationship because I've got data in 3 different drawings now. If I was to edit this alignment, I'd have to go open that alignment drawing and make a change. I could navigate there and open it, or I could open it right from here. This pointer knows where that file is. If I right-click on this, I can say Open Source Drawing. It'll take me right to the drawing that contains the alignment, and I can select this, and we'll just make some catastrophic changes here that would be very easy to see on screen. I'll save the drawing. When I go back to my file, we'll see this little bubble pop up in the corner that says, hey, some of the stuff that you've referenced may have changed during your work environment. Somebody has saved one of your references. There's an option here called Synchronize. This forces Civil 3D to go out and validate all the references and make sure that we're seeing the latest version. Let me pan this down a little bit. I'll choose Synchronize, and when I do, you can see that it pulled in the latest alignments. It updated my profile. And in the event viewer here, I can see that that alignment was synchronized. That is basically how we set up data shortcuts within Civil 3D. The benefit of those data shortcuts is that it allows us to have those dynamic relationships between drawings. And once you have those connections, pretty much the model takes care of itself. It's as maintenance-free as possible at that point. With that, we can open this up for any questions people have.